Everyone, welcome to Shine Health Coaching. Today I'm interviewing Rebecca Smith. She has been in gymnastics herself. She's coached in gymnastics herself, and now she actually works with coaches to make sure that the children get the correct coaching and, everything's done properly. So she works a lot with like performance anxiety, growing confidence. Rebecca, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I was a gymnast, but I always like to start with I was not that good. And it wasn't because I didn't have potential or drive or motivation. It was because I didn't have the right mindset. And I just
Yeah.
thought from the beginning I was too tall and too old, and I was just not good enough. And so that manifested in my career. I quit fairly early at age 14 because I was too scared to go backwards on most anything. Then I became a coach because I never stopped loving it. And I still couldn't figure out how to help athletes overcome fear. I mean, after having dealt with it myself, I still was doing the just yell at them, try to motivate them, all the things that were done to me. And so I went back to school, got my master's degree in it, and really have poured my whole life into finding the root cause of these fears, which I have found has a lot to do with youth sport culture. So that's become a passion of mine. Through helping these kids, I've realized, oh, there's a lot that, people can do to improve their confidence, but their environment has a huge part in really helping athletes and humans in general to thrive.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay. So, yeah. And I've noticed that as well in the sports environment. There's a lot of information going around, even on Instagram at the moment, that it looks like great advice. And if you're not in that environment, you're like, oh, that is great advice. But once you walk that track, you're like, ooh, like you can see a couple more steps down the line and you see how that affects an athlete and how that plays into the mindset. Because yeah, it really is like that. Like if you don't think you're good enough at a sport, you you perform like that. And I notice even with doesn't even matter what age, like I notice even with some of my clients I have that are older, they will still be like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. So like that confidence building, performance anxiety is so important. So what are some of the things you work with like coaches and athletes around performance anxiety?
Yes. So I mean, basically, I went to this meditation retreat when I was a young coach and I was trying to figure out fear. I was trying and trying and trying. And so I asked this, I think it was like our Qigong teacher, because he said something about fear. And I was like, tell me, what's the secret? And he was like, baby steps. I was like, that's too simple. No, that can't be it. And I wrote this guy off for years until I went to school and learned about what's called systematic desensitization. And
Mm,
that's where you have this phobia or this fear or this like sort of eh, irrational anxiety, or it's like too much anxiety for what's actually happening. Like you go
yeah.
out to compete, you're not going to get eaten by a tiger. It's just a lady with a clipboard, right? That's judging
Yeah.
you. But your
Yeah.
brain thinks that the beam is on fire. So
Yeah.
in order to help the brain to learn that you are actually safe, you back it up to the progression or the version of that skill or element where you can feel okay. So
Yeah.
you don't start at the Olympics, you start doing a, slightly more pressure-filled moment in practice where, okay,
Yeah.
everyone turns their eyes on you. And then your heart does the thing. And, it's just giving exposure to that discomfort and
Yeah.
coming out the other side feeling safe and successful.
Yeah.
It starts to rewire the brain to go, oh, this is safe. Phew, what a relief. But I think
Yes.
the biggest misconception is that, well, you just throw them in the deep end, put them up, put them in the Olympics and they'll get over it. And it
Yeah.
just isn't true. Instead, that sends the brain into this like resistance mode where it then is like, I'm never doing this again. It's too terrifying. I can't handle it versus
Yeah.
little by little building that muscle of, I think I can. I think I can.
Yeah, yeah. So it's it kind of like incrementally stepping up rather than throwing them in and being like, "You're gonna be great," and they're like, "Oh, I'm dying." Like,
And then
yeah,
they fail and they feel horrible. Then they have shame and embarrassment on top of that
yeah,
anxiety. And those emotions are what really keep the brain hostage.
yeah. Because it's almost like they once they have that emotional response, then they start to create stories about it, like, "Oh, I failed," and it's like actually your coach put you into something without the proper prep work. So of course, anyone in that situation would naturally fail, which is fine. You know what I mean? That's part of sport. That's life. That's especially if you're going to go into business or something, like you're going to fail forward. So
Yes.
you got to get used to that. But I also think as well, it's like how much pressure is put on you. Because I know when I did Muay Thai, like if I was fighting in Thailand where nobody knew, it wasn't recorded, I enjoyed myself more because there was less pressure. Whereas fighting in Australia, where everyone from your gym had come to see, there's a trophy, it's going to be recorded. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to like lose. Like I feel like people are kind of scared of losing face. So the idea about like, oh, you get up on the beam and it feels like the beam is on fire. It's because that fire is like, what will my social circle say if, like, in gymnastics, if they fall off publicly, that's a lot. And I know in other areas like public speaking, like this tends to be that thing. So what are your thoughts on like navigating that fear of losing face publicly if they're doing sports, they're doing speaking, they're doing anything like
Yes.
that?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of this exercise I did with a bunch of teenagers a couple weeks ago where I had them all hold hands and then they had to pass a hula hoop around without letting go. So they have to, step through the hula hoop and it passes to the next person. And, these are all very high level gymnasts. So they're obviously physically capable of moving a hula hoop around, right? So then I
Yes. Yeah.
have them set a goal. So first
Yeah.
one they do, I time them. Then they set a goal. And all of a sudden they have this goal and they're like, ah. And then so they get, they start to kind of malfunction and they get stuck in the hula
Yeah.
hoop and they can't get it through because their, quote unquote technique gets choppy. And I'm
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
okay, so that's interesting. A goal, an outcome goal, just made
Mm.
you like short circuit. Some did fine, some didn't. It's just an awareness exercise. And I think anyone who's performing in any arena, you should constantly be doing these little experiments of, okay, if I'm focused on a goal, what happens to my technique? So then we
Yeah.
went, okay, but so you didn't get your goal, but did you make progress? And they're all like, well, yeah, but we didn't get, but hold on a second. Can we give that personal best some value, even if you didn't quote unquote win? So
Yeah.
that gives them that experience. Then after they've kind of got their stride, they've put the hula hoop around a couple of times. I go, okay, now this is the only one that counts. And I tell them, you're up against every other group in your gym. The top group you get one chance. It's right now. This is the one that counts. And
Mm.
they inevitably perform worse on that round than any of the rounds because it's that same story of they're focused on the outcome. They're focused on
Yeah.
the pressure. They're focused on other people's eyes will be on my score. So
Yeah.
I just show them that and they go, we want to count the other one. The other one was faster. I'm like, well, nope, that was the
Yeah.
one that counts. And so
Yeah.
it's just then they can look in and go, okay, so when I'm just focusing on my technique and I'm totally present and
Yeah.
I'm giving myself credit for progress, I do better. When I'm
Mm.
focused on the outcome or the other people, I do worse. So it's
Yeah.
just a series of experiments where you go, okay, now I have collected the data that indicates that if I want to do well, this is where my focus should be.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Yeah.
And so anybody can do that anytime where you have a terrible practice, you have a terrible competition, a terrible, adult moment, and you're just like, okay, good. Now we know what doesn't work.
Yes.
Let's try again with a different mental strategy around it until you
Yeah.
find your formula.
And I love the idea of like, yeah, being grounded in your experience, because I feel like when you're lost in your art, like, fighting or gym or swimming or figure skating, like when you're lost in the art of what you're doing, your body, you're like more connected to your body. And it's like you've practiced this so many times, you know what you're doing. Like I remember one of my coaches, he said to me, like I was prepping for fight night and I was like a little bit nervous, and they turned to me and he's like, you've already done the work. Now it's time to just go show that you've done the work. So it's like almost like that little bit of like just trusting yourself to know that your body knows what it's doing, to stay present with that. Because it's like, yeah, once you start focusing on what's happening around you, you can't, like I remember I lost a fight once because I was like, we were fighting and then the crowd started screaming her name, like chanting it really loudly. And I was like, I'm trying to pay attention here, and it got to me a little bit because this was in my early days where I hadn't had training around like, crowd and all that kind of stuff. So crowd yelling and that used to get to me. But yeah, and after that was like a learning curve for me where I was like, you know what, whatever the crowd says, I'm not going to listen to it. And my coach and I, we did this work where I would be sparring and then he would be telling me orders from the side of the ring, and he was training me to only listen to his voice over everyone else yelling, so that it was like, okay, you're fighting and then, you know, you're obviously in your moment, but then you take that moment where you listen to the one person's, you know, who's meant to be the one telling you what to do and is going to be building you up, like, yeah, you did a great punch or something. And then you're like a lot more focused, because yeah, I've noticed that as well. Like once you lose that focus, you just,
Yeah, well, it just shows the importance of training the mind, because even if you have the most capable body, if your
yes,
mind is not dialed for those critical moments, it's unpredictable. Not to say that you can't do well, and sometimes I think people do well on kind of random mental strategies, but with
yeah,
experience, that's really where these strategies come from. You go, "Oh wow, when there's a lot of yelling, I get audio distraction, so I need to root in on an audio cue that's helpful." And
yeah,
and you
yes,
might be in a sport where like on the beam, no one's allowed to yell anything at you. So
okay,
you have to create those within yourself. So it's, for me, I basically narrated my whole routine as I went. So that no
yeah,
matter what I heard around me, whether someone's floor music went or an annoying dad was yelling in the audience, it was and chin, step, kick, 1, 2. I mean, and you might even see my little lips moving because I was so rooted in my own audio cues. So that's something that anybody with practice can create for themselves just
yeah,
based on knowing their weak spots, which you have to fail in order to find them. So I think a lot of people, the anxiety comes from fear of failure. And that's really the
yes,
number one cause of sports anxiety is that you don't
yeah,
want to mess up. But if you
yeah,
go in and go, okay, that one time where that girl beat me because of the audience,
yeah,
are you, Lacey, a better fighter for that? Because
yeah,
that
oh,
happened.
definitely, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
that's one of your best pieces of ammo to go back and go, all right, bring on the hard stuff, bring on the failures, because that's how I'm going to just keep sharpening my axe to be a better and better performer.
yeah, it's like you've been through that moment. You're like, okay, that's another, like, you know, there's only so many ways you can mess up in sports. So it's like, okay, well, I've already messed up that way and I've already learned that way. So onwards and upwards kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, so I have a question I was thinking before. What's it like when you're out there on the gym and you're, you know, like as you're explaining it, I was just visualizing it and I was like, okay, so you're out there, it's quiet, you're like going through your routine, you're on the bar. Like, what is that experience like sensory wise, like as the person going through that, like, what does that feel like?
So I think it's everybody's totally different. And I can tell you
Yeah,
for the person who is really doing well,
yeah,
it might be something like they are completely immersed in their body. And this is actually what I'm about to describe is called a flow experience. And
yes.
they're totally present. They
Mm,
are not self-conscious whatsoever. It's as if they don't realize they even exist because they're so tuned in to that. If they're on the bars, for example, their hands are burning. I mean, you are, like your whole body weight is like scraping along. So your hands are hot and burning. Every muscle in your body is engaged and clicked on. Your eyes are looking where they're supposed to from moment to moment. You're not thinking about the dismount if you're doing something else. You're not getting ahead of yourself. You're in one skill, one execution, one cue, and it just flows. Often time will sort of either slow down or speed up, and
mm.
then you land it and go, "Oh my gosh, did I even do that? That was amazing." You feel so strong. It's usually something that is slightly outside your current capability that you have to stretch to create. And it's like, okay, I have not put this routine together successfully enough times to feel great, but I know it's within reach for me. And they're just in it. I mean, that's the dream. Is like if you've ever had a moment like that in sport, that's how you get hooked on sport.
Yes, well, as you were saying that, I was like having my own memories. I was like, I remember this fight I had where it's like it's so weird. Like you're completely dialed in and you're watching, because in Muay Thai, like you've got to watch their shoulders and that, because like if a punch is coming, it's going to come from, you know. So you're watching. So it's like you're watching the body, and it's like playing chess, but with bodies. And so you're like completely dialed in, where even though you're moving really fast, everything kind of feels like you're aware of everything, and then they move and then you go, oh, just move like that, and then like I know that feeling, and that's what I love about sport as well, and I love about business is like that feeling of like just getting lost in it and being like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And then, yeah, and I love that feeling as well as like stretching that capability, because I said this in a previous podcast. Like I feel like my life is pretty peaceful. Like I've done a lot of psychology work and a lot of like I'm very healthy. So it's like my life's pretty chill, but it's good to have something where you feel like you're pushing yourself and like, because that's what gives life excitement. It's like, okay, cool. Oh, I overcame this today. Oh, I'm more, and for me, it's like, oh, I feel like I'm more capable. Even though I know confidence kind of, you know, some days you wake up and you feel amazing, and other days you're like, oh, you know, some little niggle of a fear will get to you, or maybe you compare yourself, or all those like normal human experiences. But yeah, that's the feeling you're talking about? That same.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, right? And there are infinite ways to snap yourself out of flow. One
Yes.
of them is anything outside of you. If you compare yourself to others, if you think about the judge, if you think about the audience, you've become self-conscious and flow is interrupted. If
Yeah.
you get ahead of yourself and you start thinking, two moves ahead, two
Yeah.
skills ahead, you're out of flow. If you start thinking about your score, the outcome, your flow is over. And swimmers do a lot with this, where the second they think about their time,
Yeah.
flow has been severed. And so you got to get back into that pull, like back into the rhythm, back into that burn, that desire, that fight, that focus. And so that's I think why like the training of just being present is so critical, especially at those, higher level, higher danger moments, where
Yes.
if you lose that present moment, you lose your flow. And it
Mm.
just isn't as effective as when you are totally immersed in the present moment. So, I mean, that basically what I do with gymnasts is just like help them keep, cutting away all the stuff that might intercept their positive performance, like worry, fear. That's all based in the future. You can't be afraid in the moment. Like when you can tune into your breath, that's when you're going to be at your best, not when you're thinking, I have to think really hard about the next thing I'm about to do. It's like, no, you've trained for that. Now is when
Mm.
you just trust it. But
Yes.
trust is a muscle that you have to build over time as well. You can't just go out and you shouldn't go trust something that you're not an expert at yet.
Yes.
I mean, yeah,
Yes.
but that's the goal, is to get people into as much flow as possible so that they can get their absolute peak performance that they have the potential to do.
Oh, that's so exciting. Okay. That's like, even the thought of that, that's so exciting. Okay. So what is it that, you know, because you'd imagine people they're all this anxiety, all these problems that they're having that disrupt their flow. It's not like people are purposely trying to sabotage themselves or anything like that. Like these are well-intentioned things they're doing. So what is this? Why is it that this well-intentioned, like, how do we end up there in the first place? Is it just a physical response and people are not understanding what those physical responses mean and they're making meaning out of it? Or what is it that causes this thing that you would think ideally they wouldn't want to disrupt, because flow feels awesome, and also it's, you know, you're going to get your peak performance, but then when you look at all the things that are stopping it's that. So what is it that causes that when people, you know, like.
Yes. Why would we get in the way of this amazing peak
Yes.
experience? Because we're human, and the human brain is built for survival more than it's built for peak performance. So we've got this brain that naturally, when it senses a threat, when it perceives a threat, it has this whole chain reaction of things that happens directly from the brain without any thought whatsoever. And it's so subconscious, it's so habitual. Most of the negative thoughts that we have are knee-jerk reactions. They're not thoughts that we're choosing. They're just there. And so I work a lot with adolescents, mostly adolescents and teenagers, and so they have this this overreactive fear response in their brain and an underdeveloped sense of like rationality. So all they know is I feel scared. And
Yes.
and we're supposed to be negative. So for an example, if you were being chased by a tiger and you were running for your life, you would have these split-second decisions to make throughout that run. So let's say you ran up to a river and there was a tree and there was a rock. You would
Yeah.
need to know immediately, I'm a bad swimmer, or
Yes.
I'm too weak to climb a tree, or I'm too big to fit behind that rock. You would need to know all of the flaws in yourself really fast in that moment so that you could make a good survival decision. So we get those thoughts. I'm not good enough. I'm too tall. I'm too old. I can't do it. They're better than me. She's stronger than me. Those are these, like we don't notice that that's happening, but the brain is going, I have detected a threat and I'm going to tell you everything you're bad at right now in this moment so that you can fight, flight, or freeze to keep
Yes. Yeah.
yourself safe. And so here you are, you're getting ready to, and you're like, that girl's stronger than me. Is that
Mm.
helpful for performance? Absolutely not. Is it good
Yeah.
to know if you're deciding, am I going to fight this, this cave woman in the jungle, or am I going to run the other direction? Yes, it's good to know. So we need those responses biologically, and we have to train them out of ourselves to get
Mm.
to this sort of higher state of psychological evolution to be able to go, I am seeing a judge. I am feeling activation in my body, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
The make or break is, do you feel that activation and think it's good, or do you think it's bad? Literally,
Mm.
just that decision that you make in that moment will change your performance. So if you go, ooh, hello, adrenaline. Okay, we are ready. We are ready to party. I am in fight mode and I am going to attack this bar routine. Let's
Yeah.
do it. I love this feeling, and it's the same anxiety of, oh my gosh, I don't want to go on this roller coaster. Who talked me into this? It's that same biological sensation, but you embrace it and you go, this is good. This is go power. And it
Yeah.
it focuses you in. And so just taking those sensations and going, you're gonna have the self-doubt moment and
Yeah.
you just let it float on by because you've practiced being present and that thought is in the past. It's gone now.
Mm.
So they're watching me. Okay, and now that one's gone because here I am in my breath in this
And so
moment.
would that be because I was actually thinking yesterday, I was like, I would love to learn more like stress tolerance. So it's like, in life something happens and then you're like, it's a you know what life is like. There's always another mountain to climb, or life is always throwing something in. And I thought, as a life skill for myself, I'd like to grow better stress tolerance, because I feel like my current stress release is like something happens. Thankfully I've got amazing friends and I'll vent to them on it or do some journaling or to my therapist. But it's like, it would be great to not even need to vent, to just
Hmm.
not even be so affected in the first place that you have an emotional response where you need to vent, and to just have better stress tolerance. So do you feel like the skills in sport in this area of like being like, okay, I'm having a nervous moment, my body is going, oh, she's stronger than me. Okay, that's fine. That's my body trying to protect me. I'm just going to accept that feeling, but not ride the feeling into a
Mhm.
point of hyper arousal where you're like, okay, now I'm going to have a 20-minute vent about it. Like,
Yes. Well, okay, I do want to give you like all the praise for doing the journaling, venting, doing the therapy. That is a coping skill that is
yes.
necessary. And I have
Yep.
talked to many elite athletes who are known to have a good cry in the shower.
Yes.
You hold it in, and then you let it out. And that actually is necessary,
Yeah.
because I think of emotions like a plastic soda bottle. It's
Yep.
in there, the carbonation is building, right? You've got these emotions that are in there, that disappointment, that grief, that whatever it is that life hands us from time to time outside of our control. And if you're just shaking that soda bottle up and being like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, there's going to be a
Mm.
moment where that lid comes off and you explode. And
Mm.
for these teenagers, it's always on their poor mother, and or
Oh,
they're
yeah.
crying on the beam over something little, and the coach is like,
Yeah.
"What is happening right now?" And they're like, "I don't know." It's because they have been trying to stuff it down and be okay when they're just not okay. So
Yes.
part of becoming, more stress tolerant is actually acknowledging that it is happening and
Yeah.
having that self-compassionate moment to go, "This is hard. This feels bad. I
Mm.
don't like this. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed." But you give that a container. So you
Yes.
don't just, like carry the disappointment with you throughout the performance. You give it a
Yeah.
little moment. So
Mm.
for example, a golfer, this is
Mm.
a Tiger Woods thing that he used to do. He was a hot-headed kid when he was learning to golf, and he would throw his clubs and he would stomp around, he would huff and puff, and his dad was like, "This is not you cannot do this on a
Yeah.
on a golf course." And so he came up with a strategy where if he had a bad hole or a bad hit, he would give himself 10 steps to be furious with himself, all the way
Mm.
to his bag. And then when he let his club go, he would physically and emotionally let that shot go. and he'd have a clean
Okay.
slate and he'd start again. And,
Yeah.
there's lots of different ways. Like, if it's grips on the bars, when you put your grips away after bars, you zip it in,
Done.
clean slate. But you do want to
Yeah.
give yourself that moment to actually say, this sucks. I am
Yeah.
not proud of what just happened.
Yeah.
Feel it, and then you let it go. And that's part of building resilience. But,
Mm.
but so A, I think you're doing great already that you are using those
Okay.
coping mechanisms. And I want everybody out there to have that little set of kind of external helpers. But then you also can increase your discomfort tolerance. And Michael Gervais, who's an awesome sports psychologist who's done a lot of cool things, he says that you should finish your shower ice cold every morning, or start, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's like whatever you like at some point in your morning shower, you are in there
Yeah.
ice cold to a point
Yeah.
of major discomfort just to
Mm.
increase your ability to be peaceful and calm in a massively uncomfortable moment. Cold plunge, people are all about this. That's the mental side of the cold plunge, is that you're in there ex experiencing discomfort physically, but mentally you're finding peace. And
Yeah.
it strengthens the ability to go, okay, in this chaotic or less than ideal moment, I can have mental peace. And
Mm.
therefore, I still have access to decisions and choices that I can make. I don't have to go into freak out mode. So it gives
Yeah.
you more of a pause between the discomfort and the reaction,
Mm.
which gives you more control and more resilience in tough situations. So
Yeah.
really, I mean, exercise does that. You're putting yourself into uncomfortable situations and not quitting, even though you want to. You're pushing into and past fatigue. That is it, like that's creating that stress tolerance by knowing that stressing the muscles, then giving them that recovery is what's going to build strength. So you stress your mind and then you recover and you build strength.
Yeah. I really feel like that's why people hire PTs, because if they will go to the gym, maybe they'll go on the rower and they'll be like a minute and a half. Oh, I'll just have a little bit of water. The little, I call it the emotional weasel, where it's like the part of you that wants to kind of weasel your way out of doing hard work starts to come in. But if a PT is sitting right beside you, like counting your time and whatever, it pushes. And it's the same with me. Like, I'm not saying it's like a person, it's person specific. It's like everyone in general. Like, you get pushed more when someone's right beside you pushing you, because the natural thing is to want to avoid that level of distress. But it's like when you go to, like I always say to people, like the first 3 weeks of gym are always the hardest, because you got, especially if they're running or whatnot, like you got no cardio fitness, the body feels a little bit crunchy, you haven't got confidence in the gym, like both in your body and in yourself being in the gym space. A lot of people walk in thinking like, oh, I'm, all those fears come in, like, oh, I'm too old, I'm too heavy, I'm too this, oh, my knee, I'm worried about my knee or something like that. um so yeah, that pushing through. Yeah, I guess for me, mine is like whenever I get like overwhelmed with an emotion, I either vent to my friends or I do like push-ups. I always do drop and do 20. I'm like, okay, I'm frustrated, drop and do 20, and then it's like instant peace washes over me. But yeah, I agree. There's that one, being able to express the emotion, and then also two, building resilience so that there's less moments where you're going to drop and do 20 push-ups because you're like, like,
Yeah, but still have the 20 push-ups in the background, in your
oh
back
yeah,
pocket as the thing that you'll use if you need to. And that makes me think of ducks. Ducks are
yeah,
they're so sophisticated in how they process their emotions. They'll get into a fight and then they'll flap their wings and let out the excess energy, and then
yes,
they move
yep,
on. And that, if you're over adrenalized before you compete and you're to the point of shaking, which
yep,
doesn't go well on the balance beam,
I
you,
bet, yeah,
you jump up and down, you shake your arms. You see swimmers on the pool deck whacking their legs and whacking their arms. It's like you're letting out some of that excess energy so that you can get back to a more neutral state. But as I wanted to talk about that discomfort with those first 3 weeks of exercise or first three
yes,
weeks of anything that has the potential to change you,
yeah,
your brain resists change because of something called homeostasis, and that's this desire to stay the same. So the brain wants your body to have the same temperature, the same blood pressure, the same body mass, the same everything, because right now you're alive and it wants to stay alive. So it's like, if we don't change anything, we'll stay alive. So then
Yeah.
here you are increasing cardiovascular strength and burning fat. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This can't be right because things are changing. So it will sound the alarm bells. So when you're up there huffing and puffing on that treadmill and your brain's like, don't do it, you're going to die. It's because your brain is trying to keep you the same and doesn't realize. So you have to then use your frontal lobes, that
Yeah.
part of us that's more sophisticated that goes, thank you, brain, for contributing to this.
Mm.
I know that I am safe doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to now focus on looking at something shiny in front of me or whatever I need to do to find that moment of joy through this and just trust that, like, okay, I'm building that strength. And the alarm bells are normal. And so, but you don't have to listen to them. It's just the smoke alarm. There's not actually anything wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, okay, this is normal to go off, but I don't need to make it bigger than it is, kind of thing. So you
Yes.
you also talk a lot about support networks. What's your experience with support networks, how that impacts, people's performance in sport or career or yeah.
Yes. So that I mentioned a little bit about the importance of self-trust. And
Yep.
when you are staying totally present, you're trusting that the next thing will come, that you have put in the work. So
Mm.
that is a big leap of faith for, the type A planner, controlling personality that typically finds themselves in a gymnastics leotard. They're like, but I
Yes.
need to know that everything's going to go exactly the way I want it to go. I go, well, you have trained for 100 years, or whatever. You've trained so hard, so long. Can you practice trusting? Can you just be in the moment and then be in the next moment and then be in the next? And can you allow that trust to take over? And that's something that takes a lot of practice, where
Yeah.
they have to get up there and just try trusting, like go run at that vault and don't try to think about the landing. You just be in the 1, 2, 3, 4 jump, just be in the
Yeah.
part that you're on at that moment. And that will allow you to start to, step into your greatness. So I think for anybody, like we need an environment where there is trust. And
Yes.
if I, the athlete, am going to take a leap of faith in a potentially dangerous situation where there could be a catastrophic injury if something goes wrong,
Yeah.
I need to know that A, my equipment is safe. And I
Yep.
also need to know that I'm safe emotionally and physically. And the
Yeah.
emotional safety piece is what prevents athletes from going into full self-trust. Because, for example, if a gymnast is learning a new skill and they're learning it with a spot, so the coach has got their hands on them, they're helping them, they're lifting them, they're helping them land, they're keeping them safe.
Hmm.
Sometimes coaches are like, you don't need a spot. You're good. You have this. And so they'll say something like, yep, I got you. And then they pull their hands away in the middle and go,
Mm.
see, you did it. But those little moments where they have broken their trust that, yes, I know I didn't need it physically, but I needed it emotionally. I needed
Yes.
to know that no matter what, you'll be there for me. And
Yeah.
those little micro trust breaks
Yeah.
eat away because then there's just this distraction of, is that person going to be there for me or not? If they're
Mm.
getting yelled at when they're not perfect, there's this, am I going to get yelled at? Which creates that tension again, like with the hula hoop going around, they just turn into these like tense, choppy, not very technically skilled athletes who are typically the most skilled, but they can't access it because they're in a little bit of, am I actually okay? Am I going to be supported by this person? Am I
Yeah.
going to be shamed if I do something wrong? If I
Yeah.
get afraid and I tell them, are they going to kick me out of practice? Like the fact that that's even a thing blows my mind. Like how would you think that that's the thing to do? Well, just
Yeah.
do it or get off my beam. If you don't want to try, don't be here. So then the
Mm.
brain goes, well, okay, am I more afraid of breaking my neck or making my coach mad? And when
Yeah.
they are more afraid of making their coach mad and they just do skills because they don't want to get in trouble, it
Yeah.
creates a total disconnect between like their fear response.
Yeah.
They're like hitting the snooze button on their fear response over and over. And those are the kids that come to me in a high level who have forced their skills for so long that all of a sudden their brain is like, we're not doing anything. I don't feel
Mm.
safe in this gym. I don't feel safe with this coach. And they basically have to completely relearn how to do the skills because
Mm.
they have gone on this like fear-based, just go, I have to. And now they have to actually learn to listen to their brain and
Mm.
find the value in their fear response. And so, and then there's the parent side. And parents, I love you. I am a parent. I have a 9.5-year-old gymnast daughter, and I see it in myself where I am sitting up in that observation room watching her, and I want to be like, they need to raise that bar, or she should finish with her arms up, or oh boy, get your feet together. But I'm like, keep it in your own head, Rebecca. And I don't share it. I don't say it to the coaches. I don't say it to her. I keep it I keep it inside because I know there are really, really well-meaning parents out there who are like, "Did you go do your skill today?" No. Oh, you really got to get that. And the parents are trying to motivate and they see this situation where the kid is very skilled and they've lost a skill. And
Yes.
they think it's a motivation issue again, but really it's they are shutting down under the pressure. And when parents get emotionally invested in their child's sport, the kid loses confidence because they feel like I am less lovable when I'm performing poorly than when I'm
Yeah.
performing well. So there's again this major threat of I'm going to get chastised, I'm going to get shamed, I'm going to get disowned. I mean, they feel so deeply that if they don't perform, they will
Mhm.
die on this
Yeah.
social emotional level that it
Yes.
actually completely undermines their performance.
Yeah.
So when kids have coaches that listen and parents that just do food, hugs, rides, and tuition,
Yep.
they can
Stay
thrive.
in their lane, like kind of thing. Like,
That's
yeah.
it. Food,
Mm.
hugs, rides, tuition. I'm always telling myself as a sport parent, I'm like, I do know a lot of very important and very quite helpful information that my kid could benefit from, but the fact that I am her mother means that I have four things to do: food, hugs,
Yes.
rides, tuition. And that is it. And my kid is too tall and too old and behind the normal schedule. And
Mm.
she is happy, thriving, excited, and believing in herself. And I'm like, that is all I could ask for her.
Yeah. Even for her journey, like when she moves forward in life, like this would be a good pillar to, um, she'll look back on it fondly and be like, I really love that time in my life. And I think sometimes we get so obsessed with, like wanting to win and whatnot, you forget that you're building your life and you're going to look back one day and be like, oh, did I enjoy that time? Or was I like stressing out the entire time? Like, oh, I've got to get it right. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like I remember these moments. My mom was a ballet dancer. I remember
yeah.
being in the kitchen and she was adjusting my shoulders and adjusting my arms and fixing my fingers. And I was like, stop it. Like, get off of
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And like, that's one of my strongest memories is that where she's just like, giving me something that she knows about. But I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not like that in gymnastics. Stop. Like, just leave me alone. I'm fine. Even if it
Yeah.
might have been helpful, but I
Yes.
I was like, just let me do my own thing.
Yeah. I also feel like it's good as well, like to have, you go there, you got your coach telling you all the things you need to improve on. And then it's like I go to my friends and my friends have made it very clear to me, like even if I'm like, oh, I fell short of a goal, they're like, I love you, like you're good. You know what I mean? And it's like you don't think that that in itself would be important. Like you're like, oh, like I used to at first be like, no, tell me to be better. Like tell me I need to whatever. Like I would try to get them to coach me. And then it was like through time I realized it's like there's a coach role and then there's your friends and they're both or family, and they're both important in different ways because the family is like they give you that like it's almost like stress release because you're thinking about the coach is telling you how to be better all those ways, and you're mulling that over, you come home and then they're like you did great and you're like okay, yeah, cool. Like so both, one is like emotionally nourishing and one is like strategically nourishing because it's teaching you how to be actually better as a person, and then one is just like yeah but you're good and you're like okay, and then that emotional nourishment helps you ironically perform better even though they're not telling you
Mhm.
strategically how to be better. Having like a full cup emotionally makes you better. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, the coach's job is to push you out of your comfort zone, and
Yep.
the parent's job is to catch you at the end of the day, to be that soft place to land.
Yeah.
And that dynamic is beautiful because that
Mhm.
coach from a place of love, from a place
Mhm.
of consent and,
Yes.
collaboration with you is saying, okay, if this is your goal, then that's what this is going to have. This is what training's going to have to look like. And you're like, okay, coach, I'm in. And they go,
Yes.
okay, then I'm going to push you. And you're like, yes, I want to be pushed.
Yeah.
When there's a consensual, alignment of goals, then that
Yeah.
coach is going to get you out of your comfort zone big time. If they're a good
Yeah.
coach, then that is what they're supposed to be doing. And
Yeah.
then you come home after the worst day where you felt like you completely underperformed, and your parents are like, you are amazing, and I'm so proud of you. And you showed up and you're like rolling your eyes, but it really does matter that
Yes.
and then they give you food,
Yeah.
and that's all.
Yeah. 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 I
And
feel
because
like,
if you are out of your comfort zone all day in practice, then you come home and your parents are like, tell me all about it. And why didn't you do that? And you're just like, I need my recovery between reps.
yes. Yeah. Particularly because people like that are generally already thinking like that to themselves. So like you've got the coach going like that, you've got yourself going like that. And then if your support system is also like that, you're like, that you're missing an essential emotional foundation for yourself. And then that essential emotional foundation will impact every other area. Because one thing I've learned, like through my own journey and then also through coaching other people, is like even though these things look like they're kind of separated, everything is actually so intertwined that if there's one little block missing in one area, it's going to impact. And so it's like, yeah, the best thing you can do, it's like the saying, like all ships rise together. Like you work on all these areas and you make sure they're all stable and the foundations are good, and then that's gonna like work into each other like really well. So
Yep, absolutely. It is. It's a big system that everyone's just got to do their little part and,
yeah,
and not
yeah,
try to do anybody else's part. If
yes.
you got too many coaches, that gets confusing and it becomes a struggle.
It also as well, different people have different coaching styles. So it's
Mhm.
like when you listen to too many coaches, you've got one person being like, take it easy, like, and one person being like David Goggins style, like push forward, like go, go, go. And it's like it starts to get a little bit like, who do I listen to? Because even though everyone's talking about the solution for a problem in a different way. And it's like at least you've got to at least pick a path. You know what I mean? May
Mhm.
not be the right path for you. That's fine. You'll learn that out on the movement towards that. But if you're trying to pick three separate paths at the same time, it's crowded, it's noisy, it's back and forth, it's overwhelming, and then you don't get anywhere because you're trying to flip between three different directions instead of just picking one and being like, okay, well, maybe I'm more of a David Goggins style who likes that and that motivates me, or maybe
Yeah.
I'm prefer to be more like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so parents don't be the third or fourth voice, you know, if they already have two or three they're dealing with and don't add that extra layer of confusion. It's not necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So if you had like three tips you could give to people, like I always feel a bit bad when I ask this question because it's such a like, okay, give us three nuggets of gold. But like if you had three little like blurbs of advice that you could give people for their journey, what would those top three be?
Yeah. So I always say like if you want optimal mental performance, there's a couple
Yep.
things. Um, Sleep. You must
Yes.
sleep. If you don't get enough hours of sleep, you are leaving confidence on the table.
Yeah.
And your nutrition, same thing. If your machine is not operating optimally, you can't perform at your best. So these are the
Mhm.
lowest hanging fruit you can possibly find for confidence. Is just
Yes.
fuel your body well and
Yes.
rest. You have to make time for rest and recovery, or you will not get the full benefit of the stress that you're putting your body through. So
Yes.
that's sort of like tip number one is like maintain the machine as your highest priority. And when you're easing back in from injury, you take it slow. I mean, you have to prioritize that. Then there's awareness. And if you're not aware of the negative thoughts that are happening to you, it feels
Mm.
like they're happening to you. They're just these habitual thoughts. If you're not aware, you can't change them. So, journaling is huge. I mean, I would recommend everybody get a journal and write
Mm.
out three things at the end of each, whether it's a practice or a competition. If you have a goal and you're training for that goal, after each time that you're getting out of your comfort zone, you write what went well,
Yep.
what didn't go so well, and what did I learn? And what you really want to be finding through this is clues. So,
Mm.
okay, what went well? Everything. It was amazing. Okay, why do you think? Well, I got enough sleep. I ate. I was in a
Mm.
great mood. I was not putting pressure on myself. You just start to kind of collect a little document full of clues that teach you about your performance. It didn't go well. My foot was hurting. I wasn't communicating well. I just didn't feel good.
Mm.
The bar was really high. My expectations were high, even though my body was feeling, I'm overcoming a sickness. You look at it and go, well, of course today wasn't that good because it just gives you that perspective. What did I learn? I learned that I can still get something done when I don't feel well, which is great,
Yes.
you know? So whatever that is, if you're keeping just a little quick journal, it could take you 2 minutes, but you just start to pick up clues about what helps you perform and what does not help you perform. And then
Mm,
the last piece is training being present. So that
mm,
is your mindful meditation, which literally can be setting a timer for 2 minutes and just breathing. You breathe, your mind wanders away, you come back to your breathing. It wanders away, you come back to your breathing. If that's all you do, that's as complicated as it needs to be. You can do
mm.
guided meditations, you can do body scans. I mean, you can go on YouTube and find endless ways to practice being present. But
Yeah.
even if you're just brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand, that makes you get into the present moment so that
Yeah.
it just orients you there. So if
Yeah.
you're warming up mindfully, you're feeling the ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum of the jogging. You are
Yeah.
counting. If you just can add a little bit of mindfulness into your training, even or into your day, if you're not an athlete, that will
Mm,
help you to calm that chaos and go, oh, I see an automatic negative thought coming through and I'm letting it just ride the wind on past me and I'm back to my breath.
yeah.
And there's no drama. So if you're
Yeah.
doing those three things, maintaining the body, building awareness, and building your ability to be in the present moment and specifically come back to the present moment,
Yeah.
that's going to allow you to operate a lot closer to your optimal.
Yeah. Oh, they were so awesome. Yeah. Oh, I'm loving this conversation so much.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
yeah. So when you were talking about like being awareness of your emotions, I thought of like I have an Apple phone and I actually if you go into the health app, there's a section where you can track your everyday feelings and then your emotions like throughout the day. And I started doing that just because I don't know, I found it on the app and I was like, oh, like I got excited and was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And it was amazing to see like for self-awareness because it starts bringing out like there's little chapters where it's like association. So it's like, for example, like 60% of my good feelings are associated with my identity, so then I go, oh, okay, 60% of my good feeling. Okay, I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe I'm a bit up myself or something. I
I
don't know,
love that for you.
yes, yeah. But I was like, but by looking at that data and then having these little things, I was like, okay, I can see. First of all, it made me realize, okay, wow, most of my life I spend neutral, which I think is great. Second of all, every time I have an emotional response, there's some kind of trigger before it, whether it's like, um, my friend told me good news, or I feel like I had a really amazing breakthrough with a client. So that made me feel really happy and fulfilled, or maybe, something happened in my dating life and that made me not feel good. So being that and doing stuff like that help me grow awareness around it. And yeah, like once you realize skills like that, I feel like you get a little bit more confident in yourself because you realize like, okay, I'm having emotional responses because of the environment. Like you're responding to your environment as any healthy person would. And
Yes.
yeah.
And you can avoid the things that consistently bring you down or suck your
Yes.
energy. If you
Yes.
notice that every time I do this sort of task, I feel
Yep.
horribly bad and
Yes.
get somebody else to do the task, really.
Yes. Outsource,
That is
outsource.
not on your plate anymore. It's not worth your energy. Those
Yeah.
those little things that you can go, wow, every time I go to Beam, I'm like, ugh. Okay, I've really got to address my mindset. And I'm going to
Yeah.
start saying, I love Beam, I love Beam, I love Beam. You start to
Yeah.
find the weak spots and then go, okay, what can I do to get the energy up or to just not do that anymore if that's not
Yeah.
working? Like that
Yes.
guy not working out every
Yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's the thing. I feel like a lot of people don't do that self-aware, like checking in. Like checking in sounds, a lot of these things sound so basic. Like even when I tell people like, oh, 10,000 steps, whatever, it sounds so basic, but I'm like, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not effective. Like you don't need to be doing these things and complicate things and all of that for them to make really great changes in your life and your happiness. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Cool. So, all right. So if anyone wants to get in contact with you, I'm going to put your like your Instagram, like social media handles down below. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, just click the link down below. But is there anything like, maybe you have a book or maybe you have a particular program, or is there anything that you wanted to be like, hey, this is what I'm really good at. This is what I really love working with. So people know and they can reach out to you and yeah.
Yeah, so Instagram's great. I'm at complete_performance. We put I interview a lot of like collegiate athletes and Olympic coaches. And so there's lots of great kind of motivational stuff there. I love working with parents of gymnasts. So I actually wrote a book called no, it's called Parenting Through Mental Blocks. So any parent out there that is seeing their kid hitting mental walls that shouldn't really be there physically, that, I mean, it teaches more than that. It actually teaches all about kind of the how I recommend someone parent an athlete, period.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
especially anyone who's kind of prone to anxiety. So that's a great resource for parents out there who are just like, I might be screwing my kid up, but I'm not sure. If you think so, just check out the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, come
Yeah.
follow me on Instagram and shoot me a DM. I have a whole team of coaches who support kids one-on-one, and we have a program that's specifically for kids who are kind of higher anxiety, mostly gymnasts, but we work with any young athletes, but the young female gymnast feels the most at home in our program. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we will help you through the anxiety or through that low confidence spot. That's what we love to do.
That's so exciting. I'm so excited that psychology is moving so much into the performance space because I feel like there's a lot around like trauma work and like relationship work and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's such an important foundation. But yeah, all this sports psychology, all this mindset stuff, that's so important because I feel like a lot of what people are facing is these performance issues like confidence, fear, support system, like being present in these moments where they're taking these leaps of faith where they're like, oh, go better land. Like
Yeah, we really take these leaps of faith, like you said, but are we ensuring a safe landing mentally? You know, when we
yeah.
walk away from the sport, are we going to have to go do a whole lot of trauma therapy? That's my goal, is that we do not have to. I do, you know,
Yeah.
parents out there, we do, but let's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
let that be the way it is for the kids, that they can walk
Yes.
away
Moving.
at any point. Like I want
Yeah.
my little 9.5-year-old to walk away being like, I loved it. I tried my best.
Yeah.
Not I was too old and I got in too late, you know, like I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Cool. All right. Cool. All right, everyone. Have a great day wherever you are in the world and take care.
Thank you.